And Tyler, I love this part because Ari and I, we pick the games that everybody's talking about, but you pick the games that have the lines that make your eyes light up. So what were the ones this week that got your attention?
I think first and foremost, Indiana, Oregon. Obviously, it's a huge game. A lot of my best bets aren't always going to be on the big games, but this one happened to be. I actually have Indiana projected to win this game by 2. I tweeted out that score projection yesterday, and that got quite a stir on X, as you can imagine. You're going to be
in a Dan Lanning speech, Tyler.
Yeah. He's going to put that up in the locker room. That's okay. I think Oregon's a really good team. They're in my top 5, my power ratings, but Indiana has been really good. The metrics just love Indiana right now. So I'm very curious to see how this game goes.
Yeah. The thing that I think is interesting about this is that the brain and the math are different. Like, my brain works the same way as everybody's brain on X does. Oregon's awesome. They've got these great players. And I hate that I'm saying X now. On Twitter, it's always going to be Twitter. But that's not always the case. Like, what we think is just going to happen is Oregon names it scored. Indiana got blown out by Ohio State last year. They're still a tier below. What is it in the numbers and in the calculations that you've made that stands out the most? And what can you do to help people urge that what their brain thinks isn't always how football games play out?
Yeah, just looking through some of the different metrics, like their opponent adjusted points per game is way better than Oregon's. Oregon obviously took a hit in terms of all their opponent adjusted metrics last week when Penn State lost to UCLA, because that Penn State win, and performance from Oregon was really strong for them at the time. And now that Penn State has just continued to, Penn State just hasn't looked good all season, really. So that is not as elevating as it once was. The red zone scoring on field, Indiana's been better there. That formula would favor Indiana by 7.5. And again, there are some mixed numbers here. I don't want it to sound like I think Indiana is just going to show up and roll Oregon. That's not the case. I do project them to win by 2, but there are multiple formulas here that I run that do have Oregon winning. But I look at the thing holistically, and I think Indiana should be able to cover the 7.5. And as you know, Ari, I hit this on Sunday at 9.5.
Yeah. The thing, I'm not good at math, as Andy can attest, but the thing that scares me about this formula, and I don't know anything about what you do other than you're smart, but is if you discredit Oregon's win over Penn State too much, because the Penn State that Oregon played was not the Penn State that lost to UCLA last week. I think we can agree on that. Yep. We know that teams change. And then also Indiana rolling Illinois at a pace that, was so big. The margin was so big. Like, can 2 results, because I assume that because Illinois turned around and beat USC after that is also impacting the numbers. And I wonder how much individual results of games, when we know teams aren't the same teams, impact the math. That's the only thing that scares me.
Well, that's exactly why, for all of the consternation from media or people on Twitter, whatever, they're like, well, why do we have preseason priors? Like, let's just only focus on what we've seen on the field. Well, the problem is, if you don't use any preseason priors, then you start the season with the assumption that everyone's starting from the same place, which is not true. We know that, Ohio State and Georgia and those teams are starting ahead of the pack generally. So that's where, especially at this point in the season, you still have to have some preseason prior baked in to help smooth out some of those huge results, like you mentioned, like Indiana killing Illinois and Penn State losing, as 24-point favorites to UCLA. So obviously those have to matter, but one game's not going to completely swing the whole thing.
But how far were Indiana and Oregon separated in the preseason priors?
I would have to look. I would imagine probably a touchdown or less. I don't think it was a huge gap. I could be wrong. Right. I'd have to look. But for instance, in my numbers, if I only use the on-field data, I would favor Indiana by 6.5. But because it's a blended formula with some preseason prior still baked in, it's only Indiana -2.
This is absolutely fascinating. And so want to stay in the Big Ten because there's another game that you find very interesting in the Big Ten, and Purdue, Minnesota, which we just watched Minnesota get dismantled by Ohio State. Purdue, obviously, in the middle of a rebuild, Barry Odom's first year. What do we think happens here?
Yeah, so this was one that, like, even before the lines came out, Ari and I have talked about this before. I like to bet against teams the week after they play Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, the teams that are big, physical, and that you get up, emotionally for. Like, that's your Super Bowl, because then you're in a huge letdown spot the following week. Obviously, I wouldn't blindly do that, but those are spots where I try to look and see if the number makes sense. And in this case, the number was a slam dunk, because I only project Minnesota as a 1.5-point favorite in this game. And the on-field data actually favors Purdue by 3. So I really like Purdue getting the points here above a touchdown.
Yeah. Purdue seems to be a team that you've been, hanging around a little bit. the numbers for Purdue.
Yeah, they've burned me a couple of times, but we'll see. Like I said, I do. In addition to the number, I do like the spot here after Minnesota just got dismantled in Columbus last week.
Yeah, Minnesota currently a 7.5-point favorite in this game, by the way. So for our podcast listeners who don't see the graphics on the screen, but yeah, Minnesota's a 7.5-point favorite in this game. So but the body blow theory is interesting, Tyler, because it is something when you see these teams that have to get up for the massive game, for the Ohio State game, and then what does Ohio State do to you? Can you actually lose that game twice?
Yep. Yeah, and I think we've seen that historically. I know, again, as someone who follows Ohio State pretty closely, like, there have been big games for Ohio State where the other team looks really good and gives Ohio State a game, and then the next week they just go get destroyed by somebody mediocre because they just kind of left it all on the field in that big game, and then they don't have anything left in the tank for the next week. So I think that's potentially what you could see here with Minnesota.
Also, PJ Fleck was absolutely dumbfounded in the post-game interview room too. He's just like, "That's the best defense I've ever seen in my entire life." And
he wasn't even like, they got beat 42-3. He wasn't even mad. He was just like,
"Yeah,
what are we supposed to do?"
Well, that's a good thing to bring up, because I think my general thought process on fanhood, this has nothing to do with gambling, but if I were a fan of a team, the only time I would ever be really upset is if I knew my team lost to an inferior opponent. But if my team went to the playoffs or my team was playing another team that was better than it, then like that's the result that was supposed to happen. And that's what happened last week.
Go to omahasteaks.com for the early Black Friday sale. 50% off site-wide, plus an extra 20% off select favorites. The code is Andy and Ari for an extra $35 off. That's Andy, A-N-D-Y, and A-N-D, Ari, A-R-I, for an extra $35 off. You are looking right there at steaks, burgers. These are the steaks that Producer River cooked. These are the tenderloins. I believe we just saw the burgers, the ground tenderloin burger that Producer River cooked. We have some B-roll of my ground tenderloin burgers that I made a few weeks ago that are spectacular. And tonight, I'm cooking those tenderloin steaks on the grill. Cannot wait. Omaha Steaks, the box comes. It's like Christmas every single day that box shows up. So for the early Black Friday sale, 50% off site-wide, extra 20% off select favorites. Use the code Andy and Ari and get an extra $35 off at Omaha Steaks. Go to omahasteaks.com.
Well, let's transition to the final best bet. It seems like Old Dominion is a team that a lot of people are undervaluing from your perspective. They're playing Marshall. I know that's not a game that's going to, get a lot of the listeners excited, but if you see an angle here, you see an angle.
Yeah, I mean, Marshall won, as we talked about before, like, they lost a lot this offseason, coach, players, everyone. So this is a rebuilding year for Marshall for sure. But I tweeted earlier this week, Old Dominion is a group of 5 team that not a lot of people are talking about, that has a pretty good resume already. They went to Virginia Tech and won. I know Virginia Tech fired their coach, but still, for Old Dominion, that's a big win. They beat them pretty comfortably.
Tyler, Kurt Signetti was mad after this game when Old Dominion played Indiana in the season opener because Indiana only won 27-14. I got a feeling Kurt Signetti looks back on this one and like, wow, we beat a pretty damn good team, because these guys have killed people the rest of the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you can imagine, Indiana being so high in my ratings also helps Old Dominion because they played such a competitive game with them. So, all that goes hand in hand. But I think this is a team on the rise versus a team that's in a complete rebuild. The numbers are heavy in Old Dominion's favor. I mean, some of these formulas are Old Dominion minus 38, Old Dominion minus 39, minus 45. Like, I think it could be a blowout.
Hold on. Let me just type in something real quick.
Well, so Colton Joseph's been awesome. The quarterback for Old Dominion. Ricky Ronnie has been the head coach there for a while. He's done a good job with that program. Kevin Porter's their OC. They've really put together a good crew here, and Colton Joseph has been the kind of the very pleasant surprise. But yeah, I'm interested to see what they do the rest of the way, because they look like the best team in the Sun Belt right now, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. The numbers bear that out as well.
Andy, before we let him go, I have to ask him. This isn't one of his best bets, but can you help us parse through this Texas OU line? Because we were talking about it on the show yesterday, Tyler, and like, we think that it's not just how teams have looked. Like, Andy even brought me across the other way here. I was high on Oklahoma before the season, but like, Oklahoma seems to be just a better team top to bottom. Why is Texas laying 2.5? And what do you make of this line if somebody wants to play it? Because most people just want to watch it and play.
So 1.5 now, so it's gone toward Oklahoma, but hadn't flipped.
Yeah, I wrote about this at VSiN.com today on Thursday, and I wrote, show me where you have this line, and I'll show you how much you have preseason priors baked into your number. Because, and as we know, odds makers still have preseason priors heavily baked in, which is why Texas is a favorite, on top of the fact that we obviously don't know if John Mateer is going to play, which does make a difference. But Ari, I was listening to the show earlier this week, and I was proud of you for sticking up for the players are overrated from a point spread standpoint team, because that's
a thing. I learned from
you. Yeah. Sometimes you'll see a guy get announced out and the line will just swing 5, 6, 7 points, and most players are not worth that. I would adjust about 4 points for John Mateer, but my projection on the game, again, just based on what these teams have done, on-field data, Oklahoma minus 8.5, the blended version, Oklahoma minus 8. So, I mean, you're telling me that John Mateer's worth 10 points, 11 points, because Texas was minus 3 at one point. So I don't see that. We've seen nothing from Texas on the field that indicates that they're like Ari said, that they're better than Oklahoma. So it would be Oklahoma or nothing for me from a betting standpoint on this game.
Woo! Woo! A lot of sad Longhorns in my town right now. A lot of sad Longhorns in my town right now.
Hey, it's Red River. I've been to a Red River. Like, I was at Mac Brown's last Red River game, and I can't remember what Oklahoma was favored by in that game. I want to say it was like 13, and Texas just housed them. Like, weird things happen in this game. I get it, but I'm with you, Tyler. Like, when I saw the line come out for this game, and this was when I thought Michael Hawkins was starting, I was like, have these people watched football at all this year?
Yeah, it's like I said, there's got to be a lot of preseason prior baked into this, and the injury question. I'll be curious if Mateer gets announced as in, because Pete Thamel's been reporting he's trying to play this week. So if he does play, I'll be curious. I would expect Oklahoma probably closes maybe around minus 3 if he does play. I think it'll swing that many points in Oklahoma's favor. But even at that, just to have the certainty that, okay, he's going to play, I would still play Oklahoma even at minus.
What if
3.
they announce that he's out? Is Texas going to go back to 3.5, you think? Or do you think that people have caught on to this line being weird?
I think they will, because people just overreact to news in general. It's like, even if it's something you probably already knew in the back of your mind, when you get that official report, like, just watch the market. It goes crazy. People just react to news in such a crazy, reckless way. So,
and Texas is a big public team anyway, right?
Yeah. Well, and my standpoint on Texas, it took everything in me not to bet Texas against Florida last week. I ended up not betting that game at all, because I was like, man, maybe that preseason Texas team is in there somewhere. But the way they looked against Florida last week, I was like, all right, I'm out. I'm going to trust the on-field numbers for them. They just are not what we thought they were. And Oklahoma is very good. So.
Well, some of us have better discipline than others, don't they?
BETTER or BETTOR discipline, Ari? Which one is it? Both?
But he's got better at both. Tyler will tell you. I text him at on Wednesday at night. It's like, I know you don't have a play on this game. What side am I betting? Like, I have to have something. And last night, worked out well. So, thank you, Tyler, for being here. I know you've got a pretty busy day, and you taking time to carve out for us is always appreciated. And I'm excited to watch the games through your lens this week.
Yeah, can't wait. We got some big ones. I'm excited.
We'll see you, Tyler. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.